The Empire had conquered 17 star systems in less than 10 years. Their warships moved through space like dark shadows. Their weapons could melt entire fleets into nothing. No one had ever defeated them. No one had even come close. On a cold night aboard the Terran frigate, Commander sat alone in her quarters. She was reading a letter from her younger sister when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across every wall. She dropped the letter and ran to the bridge. Lieutenant was already there, his face pale as he stared at the holographic display. The blue light made his skin look like a ghost. "Report," said. Her voice was calm, but her heart was beating fast. "Station is under attack, Commander. Assault carrier with 2 destroyer escorts. They came out of nowhere." Hands were shaking as he pulled up the data. "The station's shields are failing. They have maybe 2 hours before complete collapse." Felt something cold settle in her stomach. Station was a mining colony on the edge of Terran space. It was not a military target. It was just a small place where families lived and worked. 3,000 civilians, miners, engineers, children. "How many ships do we have nearby?" she asked. "Just us, Commander. The main fleet is 14 hours away." 14 hours. The station would be dust in 2 hours. Looked at the display. The carrier was massive, a dark shape surrounded by its escort ships. It was built for war. There was a frigate, a small ship meant for patrol and light combat. Going against that carrier would be suicide. But those were her people on that station. "Navigation," she said. "Plot a course for station, maximum speed." The bridge went silent. Everyone turned to look at her. Stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Commander, with respect, we cannot win this fight. We are one frigate against a carrier group. They will destroy us before we even get close." "I know," said simply. "Then why?" "Because if we do nothing, 3,000 people die." She turned to face her crew. They were young, most of them, scared, but they were Terran military and they had taken an oath. "I am not asking you to die. I am asking you to fight. There is a difference." She walked to her command chair and sat down. The leather was cold against her back. "All hands battle stations. We jump in 5 minutes." The engines roared to life. In the engine room, Chief Engineer pushed the reactor harder than it was designed to go. Warning lights flashed on her console, but she ignored them. She knew what was at stake. "Reactor is running hot," she reported over the intercom. "But I can give you the speed you need. Just don't ask me to do this twice." The ship jumped into. The stars stretched into lines of light, and then there was nothing but the strange, twisting colors of faster-than-light travel. 47 minutes. That was how long they had to prepare for the fight of their lives. In the cargo bay, Sergeant gathered her Marines. There were 12 of them in total, including herself. Not enough for a real assault, barely enough for a boarding action. But they were what she had. "Listen up," she said. Her voice was hard and steady. "We are going to board that carrier. We are going to fight our way to the bridge, and we are going to make them stop." Private Menu raised his hand. He was the youngest of them, barely 20 years old. "Sergeant, how are we supposed to take a carrier with 12 people?" "We are not going to take it," said. "We are going to hurt it. We are going to hurt it so badly that they forget about the station. They will be too busy dealing with us." Corporal checked her rifle. She had a scar on her cheek from a fight 3 years ago. "And if we die?" "Then we die fighting. That is what Marines do." No one argued. They knew she was right. They dropped out of near station. The scene was worse than the reports had said. The station's outer ring was on fire, venting atmosphere into space. Escape pods were launching, but the destroyers were shooting them down like targets. His hands gripped the arms of her chair. "Open a channel to the flagship." The screen flickered and then a face appeared. It was not really a face, not like a human face. It was a mass of dark chitin and glowing eyes, with mandibles that clicked when it spoke. This was Overlord, commander of the assault group. "One ship. translated voice was filled with amusement. The Terrans send one ship to challenge the Empire. He made a wet, clicking sound that might have been laughter. Your species truly does not understand when it has been conquered. Smiled, it was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made take a step back. You misunderstand, she said. We are not here to challenge you. We are here to teach you something about humanity. She cut the channel before could respond. Target their carriers' hangar bays. Sergeant, prepare the boarding pods. We are going in hot. They accelerated toward the carrier. Plasma fire lit up the space between them, and the frigate twisted and turned to avoid as much as it could. The point defense systems screamed as they shot down incoming missiles. The first plasma lance hit the starboard hull. 3 crew members died instantly, their stations exploding in fire and sparks. The second strike killed the forward weapons. The third turned the port engine into a ball of flame. But the boarding pods had already launched. Felt the acceleration push her back into her seat as the pod screamed toward the carrier. Around her, her Marines were silent. Some were praying. Some were checking their weapons one last time. All of them knew they might not survive the next hour. Remember, said over the squad channel, they have never faced Terrans in close combat. They think we are soft because we die easily. They think we are weak because we feel pain. She checked the charge on her pulse rifle. Today, we teach them the difference between weakness and mercy. The pod slammed into the carrier's hull. The breaching charge exploded. And then there was only smoke and fire and the sound of aliens who had never known fear learning what it meant to face humanity in war. The smoke was thick and hot. Could barely see her hand in front of her face. Her helmet's display flickered with damage warnings, but she pushed forward anyway. Behind her, she could hear her squad moving into position. Sound off, she ordered through the comm. Mean you ready. 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 One by one, all 11 Marines reported in. They had made it through the breach. Now the real fight would begin. The carrier was enormous. Its corridors stretched in every direction, filled with strange lights and alien symbols. The air smelled wrong, like metal and something sour. Had studied ships before, but being inside one was different. It felt like being swallowed by a monster. Move, she said. Bridge is this way. They had barely taken 10 steps when the first warrior appeared. It was huge. Nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and a body covered in natural armor that looked like black stone. Its eyes glowed red in the smoke, and it carried a plasma caster in 2 of its hands. The other 2 hands ended in blade-like claws. Minyu fired first. 3 rounds slammed into the creature's chest, and it staggered back. But it did not fall. Instead, it raised its plasma caster and aimed at the young Marine. Threw herself sideways, tackling Minyu out of the way. The plasma bolt passed so close that she felt the heat on her skin. Before the creature could fire again, stepped forward and put 6 more rounds into its head. This time it fell. They are tough, said. His voice was calm, like he was talking about the weather. Aim for the eyes and the joints. That is where the armor is weakest. More were coming. Could hear their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridor, 10 of them, maybe more. Take point with the heavy weapon. Everyone else standard formation. We push through. Move to the front. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she carried a gun that was almost as big as she was. When the warriors came around the corner, she opened fire. The corridor became a storm of light and noise. Plasma bolts flew in both directions. The walls melted where they hit. Lost track of how many enemies she shot. Her rifle grew hot in her hands, but she kept pulling the trigger. A blade came out of nowhere, screamed as it cut across her leg, and she fell hard. The creature that had stabbed her raised its arm for a killing blow. Was there before it could strike. He had no time to reload, so he used his rifle as a club. The first hit cracked the creature's arm. The second hit shattered its skull. He grabbed and dragged her behind cover. "I can still fight," said through gritted teeth. Blood was soaking through her uniform, but she grabbed her rifle anyway. "I know you can," replied. "Stay behind me." They pushed deeper into the ship. Every corridor was a battle. Every room was filled with enemies. They were strong and fast, but they were not used to fighting like this. They were used to enemies who ran away when things got bad. They were used to species that surrendered when they were outnumbered. Humans did not run. Humans did not surrender. Back in space, there was dying. Commander watched her ship fall apart around her. The bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. Half of her crew was dead. The other half was wounded. Commander said, his voice was weak. There was blood on his face. "Hull integrity is at 12%. Engines are gone. Weapons are gone." "Can we move?" asked. "Barely. We have one thruster still working." Nodded, then we ram them. Stared at her, "Commander, aim for their starboard engine. If we take it out, they cannot chase the escape pods from the station." She looked at him with steady eyes. "It has been an honor serving with you, Lieutenant." Was quiet for a moment, then he smiled even though it hurt. "The honor was mine, Commander." The turn toward the carrier. It was slow and clumsy now, barely able to move. The destroyers fired at it, punching more holes in its broken body, but it kept going. Inside the carrier felt the impact. The whole ship shook like it had been hit by an earthquake. Lights flickered. Alarms started screaming in alien languages. "What was that?" Minu asked. Checked her tactical display. She saw the signal disappear from the screen. For a moment she could not breathe. "The commander," she said quietly. She took out their starboard engine. The squad was silent. They all understood what that meant. "We make it count," said. His voice was hard. "We make all of it count." Nodded. "Bridge is 2 levels up. Move." They found stairs and started climbing. They were everywhere now trying to stop them, but something had changed. The aliens were not fighting with confidence anymore. They were fighting with fear. They had never seen creatures like these before. Small, soft things that bled easily and died quickly. But they kept coming. No matter how many wounds they took, no matter how many of their friends fell, they kept coming. An officer tried to block their path. It was screaming orders in its own language, trying to rally its troops. Shot it twice in the chest and once in the head. It fell and its troops scattered. "They are afraid of us," said. She was limping badly now, leaving a trail of blood behind her, but she was still moving, still fighting. "Good," replied. "They should be." They reached the level below the bridge. Only 50 meters of corridor stood between them and their target, but the corridor was not empty. 30 warriors stood in their way. They were different from the others, bigger. Their armor was decorated with symbols that marked them as elite soldiers, the best of the best. And behind the Marines, more were closing in. They were trapped. Minu looked at the odds. Then he laughed. It was a strange sound in the middle of all that death. 30 of them, he said, and 7 of us. "I have seen worse odds," said. "When?" "I will let you know." Raised her rifle. Her arms were shaking with exhaustion. Her whole body hurt, but she was not done yet. "We did not come here to live forever," she said. "We came here to save those people on the station, so we keep fighting until we cannot fight anymore." She looked at her squad, 7 Marines, wounded, tired, outnumbered. "But not beaten, never beaten." "Terran Marines," she said, "with me." And they charged. The elite guard of the Empire were not ordinary soldiers. They were born for war. They trained for war. They lived and breathed violence from the moment they could walk. Each one had killed dozens of enemies in personal combat. Each one wore powered armor that could stop artillery fire. They had never lost a battle, not once in the long history of their unit. That record ended in a corridor 50 meters from the bridge. Hit the first elite at full speed. She was too close for her rifle, so she used her combat knife instead. The blade found the gap between the armor plates at the neck. Hot alien blood sprayed across her face, and the giant creature fell. Behind her, the squad spread out. There was no time for tactics now, no time for careful planning. This was pure, desperate combat. His heavy weapon roared without stopping. She walked forward like a woman in a dream, her finger never leaving the trigger. The first elite she faced took 10 rounds before its armor cracked. Then it took 10 more. Then it fell, and she stepped over its body and kept firing. Minyu fought with everything he had. His shoulder was still burning from the plasma hit earlier, but he used his good arm to fire his rifle and his bad arm to hold his knife. When it grabbed him by the throat, he jammed the knife into its eye and twisted. The creature screamed and dropped him. He shot it 3 times before it hit the ground. Could barely stand. Her leg was useless now, soaked in blood that left a trail wherever she went. But she had found a wall to lean against, and from there she provided covering fire for the others. Every shot was perfect. Every target fell. Was the most dangerous of them all. He had run out of ammunition long ago. Now he fought with a knife in each hand, moving between the giants like a shadow. They were 3 times his size, but he was faster. He was always faster. Every time a blade came for him, he was already somewhere else. Every time an elite turned to face him, his knife was already in its back. They were confused. They had expected these small creatures to break, to run, to beg for mercy. That was what every other species did when faced with the elite guard. But the humans did not run. The more of them that fell, the harder the survivors fought. On the bridge, Overlord watched the internal sensors with growing horror. "How many of them are there?" he demanded. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. "Sensors show 7 Terran life signs remaining, Overlord. They have already killed 230 of our warriors, including 41 elite guard." Could not believe what he was hearing. 7. There were only 7 of them left, and they had killed over 200. "This is impossible," he said. "They are small, they are weak. They have no armor, no claws, no venom. How are they doing this?" No one could answer him. In the corridor took a blade to the side. The pain was incredible, like fire spreading through her body. She fell to one knee, gasping. The elite that had stabbed her raised its arm for another strike. Then was there. His knife took the elite's arm off at the joint. His second knife went through its throat. The creature fell and pulled to her feet. "Can you move?" he asked. "I can move," she said through gritted teeth. Blood was running down her side, but she ignored it. How many left? 19. Looked around. The corridor was filled with bodies. The walls were scorched black from plasma fire. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of death. Minyu was still standing, was still leaning against her wall, her rifle still aimed and ready. And somewhere behind them, Private and Corporal were holding the rear, keeping more from attacking from behind. 7 Marines, against 19 elite guard. "We finished this," said. They charged again. The next few minutes were the longest of his life. She lost track of how many times she was hit, how many times she fell and got back up, how many enemies she killed. At some point, went down. He took a plasma bolt meant for and died with a smile on his face. Avenged him 3 times over before the elites finally overwhelmed her position. But the path behind the squad was clear now. All that had been chasing them were dead. The fight in front of them ended the only way it could. When the last elite guard fell, only 5 Marines were still standing. Minyu. They were covered in blood, most of it their own. Their armor was cracked and broken. Their weapons were nearly empty. But they were alive, and the corridor to the bridge was open. 50 meters, said. Her voice was barely a whisper, just 50 meters. Then let us finish this, replied. They walked forward. It was all they could do now. Running was impossible. Their bodies had nothing left to give. The bridge door was ahead of them. It was massive, made of metal so thick that it could survive a ship-to-ship missile. "How do we get through?" Minyu asked. Stared at the door. She had no explosives left, no heavy weapons with enough charge to make a dent. They had come so far, fought so hard, lost so much. And now a door was going to stop them. Then her comm crackled. "Sergeant, this is Chief Engineer. Do you read me?" His heart jumped. "You are alive." "Barely. I made it to an escape pod before the went down. I'm outside the carrier now at their external power junction." There was a pause. "I can force an emergency shutdown of their systems. It will drop the self-destruct they have armed. It will also drop their internal defenses. Including the bridge door." "Including the bridge door. But Sergeant, once I do this, I have no way to get off the hull. The pod is damaged. I am stuck here." Closed her eyes. Another sacrifice. Another friend who would not make it home. She said slowly, "You do not have to do this." "I know." His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "But those people on the station need to live, and I am the only one who can make that happen, so I am going to do it." "It has been an honor, Sergeant. Tell the commander. Tell her she was the best captain I ever served under. Now get ready. Shut down in 10 seconds." The lights flickered. The hum of the ship's power core stuttered and died. Emergency lights came on, casting everything in a dim red glow. And the bridge door unlocked with a soft click. Pushed it open. On the other side, Overlord stood surrounded by his remaining crew. 30, all of them armed, all of them terrified. Because standing in the doorway were 5 broken, bleeding humans. Their eyes were hard. Their weapons were raised, and they were still ready to fight. Looked at them. He looked at the corridor behind them, filled with the bodies of his best warriors. And for the first time in his long, violent life, he felt true fear. The bridge of the carrier was enormous. It stretched out like a cathedral, filled with strange machines and alien symbols that glowed in the dim emergency lights. At the center stood Overlord, his 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. Around him, 30 crew members pointed their weapons at the door. At the humans standing in that door. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of emergency systems and the heavy breathing of wounded Marines. Stepped forward. She was barely able to stand. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds, leaving dark spots on the metal floor. Her rifle was nearly empty, and her knife was slick with alien blood, but her eyes were steady. "Overlord," she said. Her voice echoed through the silent bridge. "Order your ships to withdraw from station." Made the clicking sound that passed for laughter among his kind, but there was no real amusement in it. Only confusion, only fear that he was trying to hide. "You come onto my ship," he said. "You kill my warriors, you destroy my elite guard, and then you make demands." His mandibles twitched. "You should be dead, all of you should be dead 100 times over." "And yet here we stand," said. He was leaning against the doorframe, too tired to hold himself up anymore. But his eyes were sharp, and his hands still held his bloody knives. Looked at them, really looked at them. 5 small creatures, soft and fragile. They had no natural weapons, no armor built into their skin, no venom or claws or anything that should make them dangerous. But they had walked through 200 of his warriors like they were nothing. "What are you?" he asked. His voice was quieter now, almost afraid. Took another step forward. One of the crew members fired a warning shot that hit the floor near her feet. She did not flinch. She did not even look at it. "We are human," she said simply. "That tells me nothing. I have studied your species. You are weak. You die from cold and heat. You cannot survive in vacuum. Your bodies break easily and you feel pain from everything." Shook his head. "How can something so fragile be so dangerous?" Stopped walking. She was close to now, close enough that he could have killed her with one swing of his blade arm. But he did not move. "Do you want to know the truth?" she asked. "Do you really want to understand?" Said nothing. He just stared at her with his glowing red eyes. "We are not the strongest species in the galaxy," said. "We are not the fastest. We cannot fly. We cannot breathe underwater. We cannot survive in space without machines to protect us." She paused. Blood was dripping from her side, forming a small pool at her feet. "But we have something that you do not understand. Something that makes all of that weakness meaningless." "What?" demanded. "What could possibly make weakness into strength?" "Love," said. The word hung in the air. Some of the crew members shifted uncomfortably. They did not know this word. Their translators struggled with it. "Love," repeated. The word sounded strange coming from his alien mouth. "I do not understand." "I know you do not." His voice was soft, but it carried across the entire bridge. "That is why you are losing." She gestured behind her at the corridor filled with bodies, at her squad, broken and bleeding but still standing, at everything that had happened since they boarded this ship. "There are 3,000 people on station. I do not know any of them. I have never met them. I will probably never meet them." She looked in the eyes. "But they are my people. They are human, and I would die for any one of them without a second thought." Minyu stepped forward to stand beside her. His shoulder was a mess of blood and burned flesh, but he held his rifle steady. "We all would," he said. "That is what it means to be human." Limped forward next, leaving a trail of blood from her ruined leg. Then her heavy weapon finally silent and empty. Then his knives still dripping. 5 Marines, broken, bleeding, barely alive. But together. Looked at them for a long time. His mandibles clicked slowly, thinking, processing, trying to understand. "You are saying," he said slowly, "that you came here to die for strangers." "Yes," said. "And you would do it again, even now, even after losing so many." "Yes." "Even knowing that you cannot possibly win." Smiled. It was a tired smile, full of pain and sadness and something else, something that had never seen before. "You still do not understand," she said. "We already won. The moment you turned your attention from the station to us, we won. The moment your elite guard focused on killing us instead of civilians, we won." She pointed at him. "Every second you spend trying to figure us out is a second those escape pods get further away. Every warrior you lost fighting us is a warrior who will never threaten another human colony." She lowered her hand. "We are not here to defeat your fleet, Overlord. We are here to make you bleed, to make you afraid, to show you that attacking humanity will cost you more than you can possibly gain." Was silent. His crew was silent. The whole bridge was silent. Finally the Overlord spoke. His voice was different now. The arrogance was gone. The contempt was gone. There was only a strange, hollow emptiness. "I have conquered many worlds," he said. "I have destroyed many species. They all begged for mercy at the end. They all offered anything to survive." He looked at her broken body and her steady eyes. "You have not begged once. You have not offered surrender. You have not asked for mercy." His mandibles trembled. "Instead, you stand there bleeding and you demand that I withdraw." "Yes," said. "Why would I agree to that? I still have 30 warriors here. You are nearly dead." Raised her rifle. It probably had 3 shots left, maybe 4. "Because we are not finished fighting," she said, "and we will kill every single one of your crew before we fall, including you." She tilted her head. "How many overlords does your empire have? How many ships like this? Can you afford to lose all of that just to destroy one mining station?" Did not answer. "Order the withdrawal," said. "Let the civilians live, and we will let you live." The silence stretched on. Seconds felt like hours. Then turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet," he said. His voice was heavy, defeated. "All ships withdraw from station immediately. Break off all attacks on civilian vessels." The officer hesitated. "Overlord, the Empire will." The Empire will do nothing, said, because if they send another fleet, these creatures will do the same thing again, and again, and again. He looked at, until there is nothing left of us. He turned away, unable to face her anymore. Send the signal. The order was transmitted. Across the battlefield, ships began to pull back. The destroyers stopped firing on escape pods. The carriers' weapons went silent. Watch it happen on the bridge's main display. 3,000 lives saved. Mission complete. Her rifle slipped from her fingers. She did not have the strength to hold it anymore. Sergeant, Minu caught her before she could fall. Stay with us, we did it. We actually did it. Smiled. Her vision was getting dark at the edges. Tell the commander, she whispered. Tell we finished the job. Then everything went black. The Terran rescue fleet arrived 3 hours later. By then, the ships were long gone, jumping into and disappearing among the stars. Station was damaged but still standing. Its shields had held just long enough. 3,000 civilians were safe. The search teams found the first, or what was left of it. The little frigate had broken apart when it rammed the carrier, scattering debris across a wide area of space. Most of the crew had died in the impact. But not all of them. Commander was found in a survival pod, barely alive. The explosion had thrown her clear of the bridge at the last moment. She was unconscious, burned and broken in a dozen places, but she was breathing. Lieutenant was not so lucky. He had stayed at his station until the end, guiding the ship into its final impact. They found his body still strapped into his chair. Chief Engineer was found on the hull of the carrier. She had died from exposure when her suit's life support failed. But she died knowing that her sacrifice had opened the bridge door, that her friends had finished the mission. On the carrier itself, the rescue teams found 19 surviving Marines out of the 47 who had launched in the boarding pods. Many of them were badly wounded. Some would never fight again. Sergeant woke up in a hospital ship 3 days later. The room was white and quiet. Medical machines beeped softly around her. She was covered in bandages, and there was a tube in her arm feeding her fluids. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then the memories came back. The boarding action, the corridor, the bridge, Overlord. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her entire body. Easy, a voice said. You have been through a lot. Turned her head. Commander was sitting in a chair beside her bed. The commander looked almost as bad as felt. Her face was covered in healing burns and one arm was in a sling. Commander said, her voice came out as a croak. You are alive. So are you, smiled, though it clearly hurt. I heard what you did, what all of you did. The station. Safe, everyone made it. 3,000 civilians all alive because of you. Closed her eyes. She thought about who had died with a smile on his face. About who had fought until she could not fight anymore. About alone on the carrier hull, choosing to die so that others could live. We lost good people, she said quietly. I know, his voice was soft. I know. They sat in silence for a while. The machines beeped. The ship hummed around them. What happens now? Finally asked. Now you rest, you heal, and then, paused. The Empire has requested peace talks. Opened her eyes. Peace talks. They have never done that before. In the entire history of their conquests, they have never once asked for peace. Shook her head slowly. One battle, one ship, 47 Marines, and we changed everything. Did not know what to say to that. She had not been thinking about changing anything. She had just been thinking about those people on the station, about keeping them safe. Get some rest, said. She stood up slowly, wincing as she moved. We have a long road ahead of us. 3 months later, the memorial was unveiled on station. It stood in the main plaza where everyone could see it. A tall pillar of black stone, carved with the names of every person who had died in the Battle of Station, the crew of the Marines who never came home. At the base of the pillar, A simple inscription was carved in gold letters. They came from the smoke and the fire. They asked nothing for themselves. They are humanity. People came from all over Terran space to see it. Soldiers and civilians, families of the fallen, strangers who just wanted to pay their respects. Stood in front of it, her cane supporting her weight. Her leg had healed, but it would never be the same. She would walk with a limp for the rest of her life. Beside her stood the survivors, Minu and the others who had made it through. They wore their dress uniforms, their medals shining in the station lights. A small crowd had gathered behind them, families from the station, the people they had saved. A little girl tugged at sleeve. She could not be more than 6 years old, with big dark eyes and a serious expression. "Were you there?" the girl asked. "Did you know them?" Knelt down, ignoring the pain in her leg. She met the child's eyes. "I did," she said. "They were the bravest people I ever knew." Why did they fight? Thought about the question. She thought about who had ordered her ship into a battle she could not win. About who had given her life to open a door. About all the Marines who had charged into smoke and fire without hesitation. "Because that is what humans do," she said softly. "We carry each other home." The little girl nodded, as if this made perfect sense. Later, after the ceremony was over and the crowd had gone, stayed behind. She stood alone in front of the memorial, reading the names carved into the stone. Yes, so many others. "I hope we made you proud," she whispered. The stone did not answer, but somehow, standing there in the quiet plaza, felt like she already knew what they would say. Across the galaxy, the Empire was changing. Overlord had returned home in disgrace, but his report had shaken the entire leadership. They had studied the recordings from the carrier. They had watched humans fight through impossible odds, never stopping, never surrendering. The ambassador arrived on Earth 6 months after the battle. He was tall and imposing, with the same dark armor and glowing eyes as all his kind. But there was something different about him, something that might have been respect. He met with Terran leaders in a great hall filled with cameras and reporters. When they asked him why the Empire had finally asked for peace, he gave an answer that would be remembered for centuries. "We have conquered races that fought with claws, with venom, with powers beyond imagination," he said. "But the Terrans fight with something we cannot defeat. They fight with love. And we have learned at great cost that love is the deadliest weapon in the universe." The peace treaty was signed that day. It would not be the end of conflict between humans and there would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings and tensions and moments where war seemed possible again. But something had changed. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of. 47 Marines against an empire, and the Marines had won. Years later, when was old and gray, she would tell the story to young soldiers. She would tell them about thee and its brave crew, about the boarding action and the corridor of death, about standing on the bridge of an alien carrier and demanding that an empire back down. "Were you afraid?" they would ask. "Every second," she would answer. "But fear does not matter. What matters is what you do anyway." She would point to the medal on her chest, the one shaped like a ship breaking through enemy lines. "Remember what we fight for," she would say. "Not glory, not conquest. We fight for the people who cannot fight for themselves. We fight for strangers we will never meet. We fight for love." And then she would smile, remembering her friends who never came home. That is what it means to be human.